Welcome back. In this session, I'd like to address a couple different watercolor techniques. You should have all of your watercolor mixing done. Your colors here in the inner row mixed in the pan, and the outer row here mixed wet on wet, one on top of the other. Then on the inside you should have completed your neutralized colors where you've mixed your complementary colors together. And you've done this mixing either in your pan or you've done it wet on wet right on your paper. Now, the last session I'd like to dedicate to the idea of glazing. And this is going to look something like this. If you take your watercolor and you overlap it over the top of previously made colors, it will change the overall look of those colors. This is a way to take a passage in your painting and unify it, or take a passage in your painting and change it. So for example, here's a painting that I created for a different demonstration, and you'll notice this section right here. I used this red, the warm red underneath, and I made a violet underneath, and then this half of this inner circle here I glazed over the top a kind of this kind of greenish color right here, maybe like an olivey green color, and I glazed it over that whole top. You can still see the color of the other two areas coming through, but that color over the top changes that overall area and changes it kind of in a uniformed or unified way. So to get started, again, you have your whole color wheel done, and what you're going to do is take this color wheel and mix up your regular primary colors. Doesn't matter which ones you use. You could be really careful and do all of the warms and cools of each primary, or you can just choose different ones, whichever you want. This is an experimentation. So in that sense, I'm going to start with my middle green here, my like normal secondary green, and I'm going to get some cool yellow first. Okay, this cool yellow, I'm going to fully load my brush. Okay, so if I put it in my pan there, you can see I've got a fully loaded pure yellow, and I'm just going to drag it across my green. Okay, I'm going to start here and drag it across, and I'm going to go all the way off the paper so that here I can remember I did that glazing with yellow. Then I'm going to load my brush up again, and right here on my violet I'm again going to glaze the yellow right over the top. Now, as you do this, the undercolor shouldn't come out too much, but if you hesitate or draw your brush across the paint slowly, it might loosen up the layers underneath. That's kind of one of the things when people start using acrylics as a water media. You can let the acrylic dry a little, and then it doesn't lift off. Okay, continuing on, you can take this brush and then do the yellow on the next section here in my orange. And you'll notice that a little bit of that orange pulls out here because I went too slowly because I was doing it left-handed. But as you go, change the it'll change the different colors. You can just see here how those violet colors look different. Okay, now I'm going to dump out my dirty water because I don't want to contaminate things, and I'm going to take my next color, which is red. I'm going to use the cool red. Okay, you could use the warm red, or like I said before, you could experiment more and use all of the primary colors. But I'm just going to do the cool red for the video. I'm just going to pull it right along this green, and you'll notice how much that changes it. It's very red. Get this one a little bit more red on this violet, which it should turn it more of a red violet. Okay. And fill my brush up again, and it will change this orange a little bit too. Even though we're using a cool red, it'll give it a different orange color. And wash my brush out, and last but not least, I'm going to get the cool blue and bring it over to the top of my colors. Now, I would like you to leave a little area so you can still see your original color. So I'm just going to pull it there and leave this area here, my original color, just so I can remember what that's supposed to look like. Here, pulling it across so I can still see my original colors. And here, pulling it across, but I can still see my original colors. Okay, and that's called glazing. And the glazing effect is that the one color kind of shines through the overlapped color and changes the whole area in a unified way. All right, next I want you to experiment with two things. We're going to take one circle up here, and by the time you get your chart, I will have changed this chart a bit, and these areas will be like official looking. But what I want you to do is take a color, any color. I'm going to use the yellow here because it's going to be good for the demonstration, but you can do any color. What I'm going to do is I'm going to just like make this color thick in one sense, but in another sense I'm going to continue to have it like watery. And this is called charging. We kind of practiced this in the other video, but what I'm going to do is take my color. I'm going to use this warm red here, and take this warm red and just drop a color in. So if I just take this warm red and I pinch my brush and drop a color in like that, you can see how it reacts with the paint. Alright, it'll run where the water is, and it will stop where the water isn't. Because if we have two pieces of water, like this being one piece of water, and we drop that color into it, it will kind of run into that previous color and kind of mix. Okay? And if you take a brush and you pull it out like this, you can kind of see almost swirling patterns inside of there. That's a technique you can use to, you know, change different areas and almost work wet on wet. Again, going back to this painting here, you can see right here I've taken just this green, dropped in the red, and then pulled it into the green like that, mixing it in essence wet on wet. But I just want you to practice with that. You don't have to use the same colors as I do, but I want you to practice. And then mixing the areas wet on wet, I want you to do the same thing, to just practice. I'm going to use this warm red and take this circle here and paint it my warm red first. And then I'm going to get the warm blue and drop it in, just like I was showing in the last one here. If I can get a dribble out. There you go. Drop it in, rinse my brush, and then pull it into this area. And you'll see how wherever it will pool, it will be a little bit darker, like right here. Wherever it's thinner, it'll be lighter, and it'll actually end up running into different areas, and that's where you can use your paper towel to do some blotting. And that is when you take your paper towel and just dry by pressing down gently. You can lift that color back out. If I put the color back in, you can also, let's pretend that area is still painted in, you can also take your brush, and with a dried out brush, making sure there's no water left in it, you can also use that to press down and lift out paint carefully if you ever need to. Okay, so that concludes our experimentation session. I want you to practice with glazing different primary colors over your secondary colors. I want you to drop a color into another one and pull it out. And then I want you to drop a second color into a first color where the two mix, and then practice blotting your paper and pulling the color out with your paintbrush. And that concludes our final session of our watercolor mixing experimentation.